DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. I'm giving you a huge dose of personal initiative so you can actually put this into action and do something with it. Would that help you out? That personal initiative is the energy that moves you to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together, all of those elements I just gave you, all together in one package, one philosophy, one mindset. I wrote a book on the subject, and you're listening to the only masterclass, daily masterclass that is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic: what I would do differently in my sports career. People always ask me some form of this, what would you do differently if you could do it over again? What do you wish you started sooner? What do you wish that you knew back then that you know now? People always ask different forms of these questions whenever I'm speaking to anytime I'm speaking to an audience of people who are maybe on the come up. They're in the place that I used to be in. I get asked some form of this question. So we're gonna make a whole masterclass on this subject. I'm actually gonna do this for a couple different topics. And depending on when you're listening to this, you may see that those topics are all out. We're gonna do them all in a row. So today, next day, and the day after. I know I got at least 3 of them. I may come up with some more moving forward, we see. But since people always ask me this, I'm gonna answer it specifically here today with regard to sports. So for those of you who don't know, my background is as a professional basketball player, 9 years overseas. Background was before I started my career overseas. I didn't start playing basketball seriously until the age of 14. Didn't make my high school team, so I was a senior, sat on the bench that year, walked on to play Division III college basketball. Didn't play my senior year because I got lost in the shuffle of a coaching change in my college. I had to hustle my way into the professional sports ranks. Did that, built my career while doing that, started building a brand online, started creating and selling products, and voila, here we are all those years later. That's pretty much my whole life that I just gave you in 30 seconds. Now, what we're going to talk about again today is what I would do differently in my professional sports career. If you want to read more about my background, you can get my first book, which is called Buy a Game. You can get that book completely for free. Just download the PDF by going to workonmygame.com/buyagame. BUYAGAME. Buy a Game. If you want to read about how you can get a professional basketball career, not my story, but how you can create your own story, go to balloverseas.com. That is a physical book. You can get it for free. You just cover the shipping. That's the book. It's called Overseas Basketball Blueprint. You get that at balloverseas.com. If you want to read about the entire framework of how I put this whole thing together on the court and off the court, then you get my book, Work on Your Game, which you can get at workonyourgamebook.com. I got a lot of domain names. But anyway, let's get to the topic, which is today's what I would do differently in my professional sports career if I could do it all over again. Since I can't, the next best thing I can do is tell you what I would do. Point number 1, I would take better care of my body. Specifically, 4 specific areas: what I eat, what I drink, how I recover, and sleep/rest. Those are the 4 things that I would do differently just in this one area of taking better care of my body. Now, those of you who are athletes, you know this very well, and even those of you who are not, you would understand this, that in sports, your body is your business. Your body is your entire business when you are a professional athlete. Because if your body fails and you are no longer able to perform the duties of your sport, then the game's over. Now, if you're a basketball player with a broken leg, you can't play basketball. If you're a tennis player with a bad elbow, or let's say a broken elbow, maybe a bad elbow, you can still play. But a broken elbow, you probably aren't going to be able to play tennis, at least if it's not your swinging hand, whatever hand that you hit with. If you're a boxer with, broken hands, you're probably not going to be able to box. You understand what I'm saying here? Your body physically is incapable of performing the necessary duties to play your sport. You can't play it. And we're talking about the professional level. You're in the top 1% of what you do, meaning you had to be more than just capable, because somebody's grandfather could be 65 years old and he has the physical capabilities, the functionality to play basketball. He can dribble and shoot and run up and down the court, but he probably can't dribble too fast. He probably can't make shots accurately. He probably can't run up and down the court quick enough to keep up with somebody who's 22 years old. So as a professional athlete, the level that you need to be at just to get to the pros, you need to keep your body at or above that level for as long as you plan on staying in the pros. Because when your level of talent no longer exceeds that of all the people who want to get at it, chomping at the bit, trying to get your spot, they're going to take your spot. They're not going to be trying to get it. They're going to already have it. So you got to keep your body at the peak levels that allow you to be a professional. Being a professional is many things outside of your talent, but you do need to maintain the skill level / talent level that got you into the pros and keeps you into the pros in the first place. Your body being your entire business. Your body fails, game is over. All right, if you can't run as fast anymore or jump as high, you're a pitcher in baseball and you can't throw the ball as hard as you used to throw it, or you can't hit it as well, or you can't get to those fly balls as the way that you used to, you start losing a step or 2 or 4. Eventually, your opportunities will get smaller, your contracts may get smaller, and depending on how far ahead of your competition you were from at your peak, it may be a short or a long time, or a longer time, let's say, before you are completely out of the game simply because you can't perform at that professional level anymore. So again, it depends on where you were, it depends on what your baseline was of your peak skill level. For some people, as soon as you fall off your peak skill level, if you're one of the professional athletes who is on the fringes of the league or of a career, as soon as your peak skill level falls off, you're out of the game because you weren't that far ahead of anybody else to begin with. Now, if you happen to be really, really good, let's say you're a Michael Jordan or Charles Barkley or Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James, you were so much better than everybody at your peak that even when you get worse and slowly get worse and worse and worse, some of your reputation will still be working in your favor. Shaquille O'Neal is a guy, I think he was playing off his reputation for a couple years at the tail end of his career that he probably didn't even need to be playing. But there are other players who you might not be the peak you anymore, but you're still pretty damn good. Like Michael Jordan, when he made his second comeback in basketball, he played for the Washington Wizards. It was a period that people tongue-in-cheek, like the joke never happened. But when he was playing for the Washington Wizards, he was still averaging 20 plus points per game. He wasn't any longer the most dominant player on the court as he was during his Chicago Bulls days, but he was still an all-star level performer capable of carrying a team. Now, he was carrying a very mediocre team who didn't even make the playoffs, but he was carrying that team, that says something. I mean, we're talking about the highest level of sports in the world that he was carrying the team, so that doesn't matter. So again, he wasn't Michael Jordan anymore, but he was still pretty good. So he was able to regress back to the field, but he wasn't dominant anymore. So if you happen to be at that level, you can still stay in the game. But if you're not Michael Jordan, let's say you're Steve Kerr level of a professional athlete who was one of Michael Jordan's teammates on the Chicago Bulls for a period of time, when you start falling off, all right, you don't have as much room. All right, you don't have as much leeway to fall off and still have a job. By the time Steve Kerr started falling off, he was barely even playing in the games. He was sitting on the bench. So you, again, as a professional athlete, you got to make sure you're taking care of your body so that you not only can continue to be good in the game, so that you can actually continue to be in the game, period. The better you take care of your body, of course, the better that you're going to perform, but also the longer that you'll be in the game. And every year that you're playing as a professional athlete, those are more years of collecting those checks. And those checks are your livelihood. That's the way you live. It's the way that you eat, is having a job. Imagine you right now, whatever kind of work that you do, you just stop getting the check from doing that job. You probably going to have might be a little bit of a crisis situation you might be dealing with until you figure out what you're going to do next. And you think about a professional athlete. Many athletes play that sport their entire lives up to the point that they make it to the pros. You make it as a pro in your late teens or your early 20s, but you were playing for maybe 10 years before you even got into the pros. I was playing basketball for 9 years before I signed my first professional basketball contract. So it's not like I had professional experience doing anything else. So that skill of playing that sport, you may not have anything else that you're actually good at. What are you going to bring to the table for the rest of your life once you realize that you can't play that sport anymore? Hopefully you're thinking about that ahead of time. We may do a separate masterclass just on that topic alone. But anyway, let's talk about each of these specific areas briefly, what I would do in each area. First of all, when it comes to the eating. These days I am vegan. You should know that because I've done a couple masterclasses on my eating lifestyle. I've had a few people ask me, Dre, have you ever done a episode talking about your eating lifestyle? The answer is yes. Masterclass number 388, the topic is why and how I went vegan. So if you want to know, that's where you can find that episode. And I know I did a lifestyle update video in masterclass number 1333. So almost 1,000 days later, I did another one. My nutrition / health lifestyle as of early 2020. So if you have not listened to those two masterclasses, again, that most recent one is 1333, my nutrition / health lifestyle as of early 2020. So I am still vegan, been vegan since 2015. I still do eat non-vegan things, maybe sometimes on the weekends or if I'm traveling or something like that, or if I just feel like it, I may have something non-vegan. So I'm not a strict vegan, but I am vegan. All right, the meals that I eat lunch and dinner. I do not eat breakfast as a meal. I just have a protein shake using vegetable protein, no whey protein. And those are vegan meals, and my digestion is a lot better when I eat vegan. My digestion is a lot faster. Body just runs a whole lot smoother. I'm still in pretty good shape. I still work out every single day. So when it comes to eating, as an athlete, I used to eat whatever. I used to eat all kinds of sugars, all kinds of processed foods. I mean, a ridiculous amount of processed food. I mean, that was all, damn near all I ate was processed food. I didn't eat a whole lot of organic stuff. Even my produce, I wasn't eating a whole lot of organic things when I was a professional athlete. So I think if I had taken better care of my body or had the knowledge, not even that I was just ignoring it, I just didn't have the knowledge. Once I started getting more of that knowledge towards the end of my career, I started making changes as far as what I was putting in my body, especially with eating. When it comes to drinking, these days, the only thing that I imbibe is water. I do not drink Gatorade. I don't drink any type of sports drinks. I don't drink any type of soft drinks, no sodas. I don't drink tea or coffee. I do not consume alcohol. I don't drink any kind of fruit juices. All I drink is water. That's the only water and a protein shake. I have a protein shake every day. Other than that, all I'm doing is drinking somewhere between 6 and 7 liters of water, which is upwards of 200 ounces of water every single day. So I try to drink at least my body weight in ounces every day. So I'm somewhere in the 180 pound range, give or take what day of the week it is. I try to get that many ounces of water every single day. So that's the change that I would make when it comes to everything I'm doing now, I would have done when I was an athlete, just to make sure I'm being clear. When it comes to recovery for an athlete means things like putting ice on your body or icing in basketball, specifically your knees and your ankles are important areas that you want to ice. When you're playing sports, we use foam rollers. Athletes in all sports use foam rollers. Making sure you're taking care of, especially in basketball, you got to take care of your lower body, your legs. Now, your whole body matters. But of course, you got to take care of your feet, take care of your ankles, your calf muscles, your knee area, your hips, your back. All of those things are really important when you're playing a sport like basketball, and that's a sport that I know. But every sport, if you start getting any type of pains in a certain area of your body, it will hinder the way that you perform that sport. I remember Tiger Woods, who's a golfer. I mean, it's not no running and jumping happening in golf, but he has some back issues. And I could imagine that it's pretty hard to play golf when your back is bothering you because you're always leaning a little bit when you got to line up and hit that golf ball. I don't know anything about playing golf, but I can see when a golfer is hitting the ball, they're leaning over a little bit. So if your lower back, imagine your lower back bothering you and you got to play a round of golf. All right, it's pretty damn hard. So Tiger Woods, being Tiger Woods, it was pretty hard for him to play golf with a bad lower back or whatever part of his back was bothering him. It's a whole kinetic chain that everything connects. So there were times when I was having issues with my knee or with my ankle or with my calf muscle, and my trainer was able to tell me, hey, it's not really that area that has a problem. The problem might be higher up in the kinetic chain. It might be something with your shoulders or your back or your core, or maybe you have too much weight in a certain area, and then that area, because it's so strong, it is causing an imbalance and then leading to a weakness in another area. But the area that you think is the problem is not actually the area that's the problem. And I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So recovery is another thing I would do differently. And the fourth thing is sleep. And this is all under point number one, taking better care of my body. Sleep. When I was an athlete, what I used to do is sleep like 4 to 5 hours at night. Then I would get up early, do my workouts, 2 to 3 workouts a day. And then I would take a nap somewhere in the course of the day, probably like a 2 to 3 hour nap every single day. That was my schedule for the majority of my professional basketball career. I think had I instead had a more quote unquote normal sleep schedule, which is sleep a full 8 hours straight, 7 to 8 hours straight every single day, I would have had more energy, maybe been more awake, more sharp, and been an even better player. Now, what a lot of people say when they don't get a lot of sleep is they rationalize it by saying, well, I don't feel tired, I feel good, I still perform at a higher level, et cetera, et cetera. Of course you do, because the human body is a very adaptable machine. So whatever you get the human body used to, it will get used to, and it will be able to perform. I've known people who said, I remember I was speaking to my father once, and he was talking about he sleeps like 4 hours a night. No nap during the day. He just sleeps 4 hours a night, and that's pretty much all he gets. And I'm like, do you ever feel tired? He was like, no, I feel normal. My body is used to it. And of course I commented that, if you slept 8 hours a night, you probably have an incredible amount of energy if you get yourself used to it. I don't know if he ever got around to it. Who knows how much he's sleeping these days. But I remember him saying that, and I mean, I was pretty much doing the same thing. I was getting the naps in during the day, but it was the same thing. My body adjusted to the schedule that I was giving it. And even though I was performing at a pretty damn high level, given that schedule, I probably would have performed even better had I had some better information or better listen to whatever information had been given to me at the time. Who knows if somebody tried to give it to me, I just ignored it. And I probably would have performed at an even higher level as an athlete. So that is point number one, taking care of my body. Let's move on to point number two. Today's topic is what I would do differently in my professional sports career. Number two, I would play in more games and gather as much game proof as possible. Now, any of you who follows any of my material when it comes to overseas basketball, we actually have a podcast on the same platform you're listening to this on right now. Well, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, SoundCloud, whatever. Overseas Basketball Blueprint is the name of that podcast that is specifically about overseas basketball. Episodes are shorter than what you get on Work on Your Game. But anyway, in that show, one thing that I talk about all the time, or anything involving overseas basketball, all the books on the subject, any webinars I do, any emails, any courses, anything about overseas basketball, I emphasize to players that you have to have proof of your ability to perform. And what proof is in the professional basketball world is game footage, because game footage does not lie. And I would also, if I needed to, I would invest in hiring somebody, a videographer, an editor, whoever could put together all my footage and make me look as good as they could possibly make me look without lying, because it's game footage and game footage doesn't always tell the truth. Proof is everything in the sports world when you're trying to get in the game, simply because everybody else is also trying to get in the game. So a person who's trying to make a decision on who to go with, who to work with, who to have on their team, they can't really go off of what people say, because everybody is saying that they're good. I mean, if everybody's telling you that they're good, how do you know who to believe and who to ignore? That's why I'll give you what a basketball coach once told me. He said whenever he works with players and he's trying to help players get better at their games, he may tell them something about their game, and the player may listen and the player may not listen. But he said, here's one thing that every player always listens to is game footage. All right, when I show them footage and video of what they're doing, even if it's workout footage, I'll show you footage of how you're shooting the ball and tell you, well, you can shoot it differently and better. You might not listen to me if I just tell you, but if I show you the footage, then it ain't nothing to argue, because it's right there on video and it's you on that camera doing that thing. So game footage always tells the truth, but you got to actually have game footage so you can get that truth out there. I personally, being that I came from a different era, I signed my first pro contract in 2005. So videos on cameras or video cameras on phones didn't become ubiquitous till, it was probably around maybe 2014, 15 that they were ubiquitous to the point that everyone was just walking around and you could get high quality footage, really clear footage, just using your phone. I remember even in 2013, going into 2014, I was still carrying around a separate camera, just a device that was just a camera in addition to my phone, because the device that was a camera alone got much better footage than whatever my phone was capable of doing at that time. So for the majority of my career, being able to record useful, visible video on your phone was not ubiquitous, meaning it wasn't on everybody's phone. These days, everybody has it on their phone, even if you got the cheapest phone out there. So I would make sure that I had more video. And one of the things that I thought of when I was saying this is, when I was making this note, is I had many great games and many highlights in gyms or on courts where there were no cameras present. There were people there, but everybody didn't have their phone out. Everyone was not taking videos trying to get a clip for Instagram or Facebook or wherever people post clips of stuff that they record. That stuff wasn't ubiquitous. So as many times I did some things, I'm like, damn, I wish I had that on camera. Damn, I dunked on that guy. I wish I had that on camera. I crossed this guy over. I had 30 points in this game. I wish I had those things on camera, but those things are lost to, they're just floating around the ether. They happened, but there's no proof that they actually happened. And in the professional sports world, you need proof of your ability to perform, because it will put you ahead of all the other people who don't have proof and are just talking. And there are a lot of athletes out there who are talking about what they can do, but they have no proof of what they can do. You need as much proof as possible. If I could do it again, I would make sure I had a camera person with me. Everywhere I went, film me. Anytime I get on this court, film everything I do. If it is completely mundane or I have a terrible game, we can delete it, but film every damn thing. Do not miss anything. This is huge for your future, and is also huge for posterity's sake. Posterity's sake, meaning be able to look back and say, hey, I did that. I did dunk on that guy. Yeah, I had 30 points on him. Yeah, I crossed you over. Don't lie and say I didn't cross you over. We got it on footage. But if we don't have the footage, then it's always going to become a he say, she say thing. And also for your future, like I said, you're trying to sell yourself to a team or to a coach or for some opportunity, the more proof that you have that you can actually play, the less you got to talk. Point number 3. Today's topic is what I would do differently as a professional athlete. Number 3, I will find trainers sooner. In my career, I did have trainers at different points, but I did a whole lot of self-teaching. I did a whole lot of self-teaching for my skills on the court, which I put out to the world for the world to use on YouTube during those days. And I did a whole lot of self-teaching off the court when it came to training my body, when it came to going to the weight room, doing my cardio and conditioning. Now, while I had a pretty solid grasp of what to do in the gym to work on my body, at the same time, I don't have a kinesiology degree. I'm not a certified strength and conditioning coach. So when I work with people who did have those degrees and did have those certifications, I realized that there were a whole lot of things that I did not know, not because I had ignored the information, but because it's not the type of information that mainstream, that you're just not going to find this kind of information reading a Men's Health magazine. These are the kinds of things that you learn when you go to a specific course on strength and conditioning, that you learn when you have a degree in kinesiology, things that you only learn when you're talking to experts in those areas. So when I start meeting trainers who are experts in helping an athlete get their body in the best possible shape, we're talking about the performance coaches, I learned, there are a lot of things that I would never have thought of and would never have been able to do had I not come across you, because you thought of these things, you know these things, you were taught these things. No normal person who doesn't have that degree would ever have the kind of information that I got from, for example, my trainer Maria, when I told her, hey, I have all these muscles. I got these 8-pack abs, and I got all my muscles are all over the place. I got this low single-digit body fat, and I'm ripped, and it looks good on the beach. But for whatever reason, I might have some tweaks in my hips, or my lower back was bothering me, or my knees were bothering me. I'm like, how does my body feel weak when I got all these muscles? And she explained to me, well, it's because, Dre, you know what you know, which is working the big muscles. You do the lifts, and you go in the gym and you're in there for 60 to 90 minutes a day. You're doing all the stuff that makes your body look great. But the problem is when you're playing a sport, you have all these repetitive use movements. Any sport that you play, there are certain movements you're doing over and over and over again. And they eventually start to weaken these small muscles, not the big muscles, but the small muscles that support the big muscles, the small muscles that support the joints. For example, the elbow, the lower back, the hips, and the knees and the ankles are not muscles. They are joints. They are muscles that go around them, on one side of them, on the other side of them, to connect and things like that. And if those big muscles are really big and really strong, but you're not doing anything to support the joints, you're not doing anything to support those smaller muscles that connect to the big muscles, then those joints are going to start to get weak. And the more strong you are, paradoxically, the faster you're breaking down those joints, because those big muscles are creating more and more force. The bigger your muscles, the more force you're creating, and actually the quicker you speed up your chance of getting injured. You speed up your path to an injury or to aches and pains simply because your muscles are bigger and stronger, you're moving faster, jumping higher. So working with conditioning coaches and strength coaches and performance trainers taught me those things. Now, had I not ever come across them, my career probably would have been shorter than it was. And when it comes to skills on the court, there are trainers out there who are going to notice things that you don't notice. They see things in your game that you don't see. Little tweaks that could be the difference between scoring 25 points and scoring 28 points. And that 3 points could be the difference between winning the game and losing the game. Could be the difference between you getting a contract and you being a free agent the next season. And another thing when it comes to skill, any of you athletes in any sport, a skills trainer will probably get you to focus on certain aspects of your game that you personally would not be inclined to focus on yourself. As athletes, we tend to focus on our strengths. The things that we're good at, those are the things that we like working on because we can just get better and better and better at them. And this is something that I advocate in many areas of life. You want to focus on your strengths and not your weaknesses. However, there are certain areas of your game in whatever sport that you play, when you do focus on an area that may be even a weakness or maybe a mediocrity or maybe something that's holding you back, slowing you down, if you could turn a weakness into a mediocrity or something that you're mediocre at into something good, that can raise the entire level of your game and maybe change the trajectory of your career. The challenge is the things that you are not naturally good at, i.e. you're not naturally working on your own, you may not know how to work on them, because if you did, maybe you'd be working on it and it wouldn't be a weakness in the first place. If you knew how to work on it, or you knew you had some reason to believe working on it would help you, you might be doing it yourself. So having another set of eyes, person whose word you trust, person whose perception you trust, who can tell you those things that maybe you would never tell yourself, can help you get your body in a much better position and your game in a much better position a lot faster, or period, in such a way that you would be either A, take too long to get to, or B, you would never do in the first place. Remember that as an athlete, your job is playing your sport. whatever that sport happens to be. Your trainer's job is to make sure that you are in the best possible position to play your sport. And it's a slight difference between the two. Your skills trainer, meaning the person who helps you work on your body, your conditioning and the shape of your body, those things, they know things that you simply do not know. All right, they have information that you would never be privy to if you didn't talk to them. But when it comes to your skills trainer, maybe there are certain aspects of your game that you know are weak, but you come up with a rationalization or some type of story that keeps you from working on it, because it's not fun to work on areas that you're not good at. And if you knew how to work on it and make yourself better, maybe you wouldn't be not good at it in the first place. You would have been working on it. So that's what the trainer can help you do. So you would need to find a trainer in both areas, on the court / field or wherever sport you play, in the pool, and for off the court, field or pool. People who you trust enough and you respect enough that when they tell you this is what we're doing, you do it. No, don't get a trainer who you can overrule. And the trainer says, we're gonna work on your jump shot, and you're like, well, I don't work on a jump shot, and then you just don't do it. You need a trainer who says, listen, you're gonna do what I tell you to do, or get the hell out of here, and I'm not training you. You need a trainer that you respect enough that when they tell you that's what is happening, that's what you actually do. That you trust their judgment. It's not you just telling them to guide you through what you want to do. It's them telling you, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to guide you, and you're going to do what I said. That's the kind of trainer that I would invest in earlier. Again, if I knew then what I know now. Your trainer's job is to help you play longer and play better. They can help you fine-tune your skills in ways, again, that you do not know about. Let's recap today's class, which is what I would do differently if I was doing my sports career over. So since people always ask me different forms of this, what would you do different question, I'm gonna do a couple episodes of this in different areas of life. Point number 1, take better care of my body. 4 specific areas: eating, drinking, recovery, and sleep. In sports, your body is your business, so when your body fails, you are done in the game. The better you take care of your body, the better you'll play, and the longer you'll play. And the longer you play is another year getting them checks. Point number 2, playing more games and gather as much proof as possible. I will hire somebody even if I needed to. Proof is everything in the sports world, especially when you're trying to get in the game, because everybody can talk about what they can do, but the people who can prove it are automatically going to get more attention than the people who are just talking about it. And game video doesn't tell any lies. This is great for your future in your sport, and it's also good for posterity's sake. Because if you're an athlete, you got some kind of internal drive, and you got an ego, and you want to be able to prove that the things you're talking about you actually did. So the more footage you got, the better. Number 3, I would find trainers sooner. I did have trainers, but I also did a whole lot of self-teaching. I'd be more urgent about finding trainers to help me fine-tune my skills and better my body. Because remember that your job as an athlete is playing your sport. Your skill trainer can see what you can and help you add to your skill area. Your performance trainer can help you play better and help you play better for longer, which means help you get more of them checks. And they can help you fine-tune your body in ways that you as an athlete do not have the information or the insight to ever have even thought about, let alone know about. Work on your game. Dre all day.